Thank you.
Excellent.
First off, can I tell you how much I love Ireland? This is just gorgeous. I spent the day walking around Dublin yesterday, and I'm getting older, so in case I have to sit down. But this park is amazing, and so I'm just thrilled to be here. All right, I'm going to talk, before I even get into my slides, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. And that is the impending AI bubble collapse. I watch a lot of YouTube and TikTok, probably more than I should for someone my age. And all anybody's talking about is the impending AI bubble collapse. And it is going to collapse. You have all these frontier models, Alan was alluding to it, and they're all going to IPO, and they're all burning cash like crazy. And so I just want you to just put that out of your mind. That's going to happen, it's going to crash, but that doesn't mean AI is going away. And so I really want you to think about how AI is going to impact you on a day-to-day basis. And when you get to be older, you start to see these patterns emerge. And one of the patterns emerges is change is not all that sexy. So I remember I was just graduating college when I saw the Excel for the first time. Nobody was making a big deal about Excel, and now it runs every corporation, every function in the world. So sometimes the changes they're needed, just come along, and they are not really all that impactful at the moment, and yet they change the world. And we saw this when the dot-com bubble collapsed. What came out of that? YouTube, social media, Google, and all kinds of other technologies that broke through. So it's easy to get on LinkedIn and go, AI is great, AI is going to collapse, AI is going to kill consulting, AI is going to do this. First off, if you want to learn AI, please, please, please stay off of LinkedIn. The people posting about AI on LinkedIn have no idea what they're talking about. So you have my permission to just never look at it. All right, as Alan said, I'm writing a new book, and it's going to be about how AI is going to change the future enterprise. But my thesis is not that it's going to automate it, it's not going to do this, it's not going to lead to the robot apocalypse. It's actually going to expose businesses, because the way that we have built every business for the last couple hundred years has been built around humans. That's not bad. But in this AI world, it's going to change it. Because every business, all the people there do two things. They conduct information. So I move information. If I'm on the bottom, I put it to middle management. Middle management synthesizes it, gives it to the top. And if there is information missing, the humans actually make interpretations of that data to pass it along up the chain. Well, in an AI world, I don't need any of that overhead. And so if AI is the bus that runs the information up and down the organization, it changes the organization. And as Alan said, or from my perspective, I agree with Alan, this is not about firing everybody. This is not about AI taking our jobs. There actually might be more jobs. And we've also learned a very valuable lesson as of late, is tokens are more expensive than humans. So this is not about cost savings or firing people. But that doesn't mean that AI is not going to identify inefficiencies, ineffectiveness in organizations. Because you look at any middle managers in the organization, what are they doing? We don't need them anymore. And in fact, the bottom tier of the organization is going to change fundamentally. And again, this is not about firing everybody. It's just this fake productivity, the creating complexity for complexity's sake. That's why all digital transformations fail. And we're going to expose a whole generation of leaders that have not really led their organizations, because AI is going to expose that. And those billions upon billions of tech debt, that bill is coming due. And there's going to be a lot of CIOs out on the street because they don't have a good reason for just buying SAP or just buying Salesforce. Okay, we are now in the 4th generation of procurement technology. And the first generation is at the turn of the century, the dot-com run-up. As I mentioned, you had all the Amazons and eBays and Pets.com at the turn of the century. And it was a bubble. And I was fortunate enough to be in San Francisco in the midst of the bubble and the dot-com bubble. And it was wild. You had all these high-priced consultants coming in thinking they were going to build businesses. And I should write a whole book on the dot-com run-up. It was just crazy. But of course, it collapsed. And out of that, and there was some B2B, which would have been free markets, Descartes, Abbreviate, which is where I started my career 26 years ago today. So I've been doing sourcing for 26 years, which is, well, that's, anyway, we'll just leave it at that. But then we had Ariba came along and bought free markets, and Mtaurus bought Descartes, and then eventually SAP bought Ariba, promptly did nothing with it for 20 years. And then IBM shut down Mtaurus, and you had Jagger and all the iValua and all the other sort of machinations. And that took us, that was the suite generation, the 2.0, the, hey, buy one suite of software and we'll solve all your procurement problems. And that proved to be just short of fraud, just that short of fraud. And I wrote a whole book about that. And by the way, you can keep your Aribas and your Oracles and your Zycuses. Just understand that that's 2.0 technology. It is 2 generations out of date because we had the SaaS explosion, which was my spider chart, which I'm happy to report is in retirement drinking Mai Tais on the beach. But the SaaS explosion was a market reaction to the failures of the suites. And now we're watching that whole 3.0 technology collapse. And you're starting to see, I mean, it seems like every week somebody's getting acquired, merged, rolled up. And mark my words, private equity is going to make some big plays in this space in the imminent future. All of that doesn't matter. None of that matters because we've now entered the 4th generation, and that's AI native procurement. And I would not put anybody in the 4.0 bucket just yet because we're still defining what that means. But that's going to be a new set of productivity tools, a new set of AI native platforms. And this is evolving. Now, there's a couple of folks that are knocking on the door, and I'm not saying that I'm not the arbiter anymore. I don't want to be the arbiter. But there are, just as an observer, there are some that are close, there are some that are closer than others, and there are some that are using the language that will never make it. So buyer beware. All right, I want to just zoom out for a second to the supply chain. Because when we talk about this idea of agents and all of this stuff and the AI bubble and this and that and the other thing, let's just contextualize it because today's supply chains don't work. They just don't work. And mainly, I blame SAP and consultants, but tough crowd, wow. I was in Germany making fun of SAP, and then my laptop cut out, so I was convinced they were listening. But essentially what we have is a bunch of siloed transactional systems. And plan, source, make, deliver, and you might have 10 ERPs or 100 ERPs, all of this stuff. And so what we need is end-to-end, and what we get is a bunch of vertical silos. So then we threw data management teams, and all we ended up with was data silos. So we've had SaaS software over the last, 10 years that promised end-to-end planning, or it promised the supply chain control tower, all of this nonsense. And that didn't solve the problem either. So now we have agents, and we have this agentic layer, and everybody is saying, oh, well, everybody's adding agents. Well, if somebody comes into your office to sell you agents on top of SaaS, on top of your transactional systems, you have my permission to kick them out of your office because they have no idea what they're talking about. Because the moment that you spend more than 5 minutes with agents, the moment you realize agents are going to obliterate SaaS and they're going to hollow out all your transactional systems. So you want to keep your SAP system because the CIO says we're an SAP shop? Fine. But agents, I don't want to ever log into SAP again. In fact, I have vowed never to. And so, because the agent can go in and get that data that I need. I will end a little early and do a Q&A. So if you want to ask the question about SAP closing off all their APIs, I'm happy to answer that. But that's, as you probably can guess, a failed strategy. That's not going to work for them. But essentially understand that this is the fundamental change that's happening architecturally. It has nothing to do with ChatGPT or anything else. That this is because today's supply chains don't work. They work, they function, but they don't work for resilience or for effectiveness. And so this is the promise, and this is what's going to happen. Now, let's zoom into procurement. So we have source to pay, your traditional upstream and downstream. And if you are unfortunate enough to log into LinkedIn or go to the big conferences these days, you'll hear about everybody's deploying agents and building agents, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you throw enough agents at source to pay, what do you end up with? You're going to end up with a procurement black box. And this black boxification is going to happen to source to pay, but it's going to happen to other corporate systems. My HR system, my CRM system, we're witnessing in real time Salesforce collapse in front of us because CRM was great when you didn't have any accountability on your Salesforce and they were all out drinking and out on the golf course or back in the day at strip clubs. But now we brought in CRM and we had some accountability. But actually, when we want to do sales in the 21st century, CRM is too constrained. So we need to blow that open. So sales is becoming a black box. And so for a lot of the corporate functions, especially legal, HR, IT, finance, they're going to get black boxed too. And I don't know where they go. And quite frankly, I'm not too worried about them. That's their problem. But, because they're not my people. But for procurement, we are actually going to move back into doing the business of procurement. If you could give me the procurement black box today, I would say yes, please, and thank you, because source to pay is not fun. It's not fun for anybody, for any of us, and that's why we try to outsource it or give it off to global business services. So I'm not having it. But the business of procurement is, procurement needs to be in those new product design sessions. We are vital to the business, and we have learned that over the last 6-7 years, and you can already see this going more and more and becoming more and more important. And I will say this, everything we buy now, we have to put a procurement lens on it, especially all this AI stuff, because the way we buy AI tools is vastly different than any other tool that we've bought before. So any service provider, any software, this whole AI component when we negotiate, this is vastly different now. And so, for those that will follow Scott Galloway, he's a very popular NYU professor. He was talking about that for Anthropic, OpenAI, and even Google to some degree, that what they need is they're just spending money like crazy and losing billions of dollars a year. And he says, they need procurement. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. Somebody was actually talking about this idea that we can't have unconstrained spending. All right. So we are going through the biggest labor transition since the end of World War II. We have a brand new generation coming in, 2 generations coming in with another following behind. We have a reevaluation of what work means. So while there is this AI, there's also just business has changed. And so if you're over 40, I want you to recognize that this is not about you anymore. Your inability to not figure out AI does not mean it's not useful. It means that you have a different lived experience. Does not mean you're less valuable. It means you have different skills. So we can't just take the same lens. This is why all CIOs, or most CIOs, are in real trouble, because they've grown up in an era where it was about simplification of the IT stack, and that's not what's happening, and I'll prove that to you here in a minute. Couple of minutes. All right, so if you look, it's hard to see, but the chart, the millennials are the biggest percentage of the workforce. Gen Xers and baby boomers, Gen Xers are the second one down, that's my generation, oops, sorry, my generation, and baby boomers are at the bottom. So now the problem is, so boomers are on their way out of the workforce, and those that were the ones born after World War II and in the big run-up, and they are exiting the workforce. 5 years, they'll be gone. Goodbye, see ya. Don't let the door hit you in the rear. And if we could get them out of politics, that would be amazing, but maybe that's more of an American problem. But Gen Xers and boomers, we hold the predominant amount of leadership positions. And that's a problem, because these two generations remember a time without computers, without personal computers at least, with a time before, forget the internet, forget mobile technology, forget smart technology, forget cloud, forget AI. We remember a time without computers everywhere. So how do we think we can be making decisions about what the next, what tools we should be buying? So we have to take a step back if you're in a leadership position and recognize there's a whole nother conversation happening that we don't understand. Millennials, that was the first generation, and I know there's some millennials out here. You grew up with personal computers, ubiquitous internet. Maybe you started with dial-up and then moved to high speed. First generation to go to school with mobile technology, the Nokia flip phone, or the Nokia brick phones that are making a comeback right now. And of course, but the Gen Z, they're the first generation to grow up with AI. And it's not like, as those of us that are older, we think of this as here's digital, here's AI, here's analytics. No, none of that. For Gen Z, it's all embedded in their experience. But by the way, even they are eschewing technology. Like these are always moving. So Gen Z is rejecting mobile technology, they're rejecting social media. So there are things that are happening that these are not, these are nuanced, but also understanding that we have different perspectives in all of this. But just to bring this home just a little bit, look at, I'm gonna go right to left. The board members, that big purple box, that's boomers still in board level positions. The blue box below it, Gen Xers. So this, when you worry about, when you think about problems that are board level down, and look at the C-suite, still quite a number of boomers and Xers. So whenever we sign an SAP contract or a Microsoft contract, it's because it makes the boomers and the Xers feel like they have some measure of power in a world that they don't understand anymore. And even a predominant amount of senior management positions are still Xers and boomers. So regardless, 10 to 15 years, all of those folks will have matriculated out of the workforce, either by choice or by prod. And that's going to change everything. And so when we, okay, so I guess I'm just gonna go all in on SAP today. So, and there's no Carney people here, so I can show you this. There's the dashboard on the left is Carney put in SAP a couple of years ago, and it's so terrible, it's awful, I don't understand it, I don't use it, I just refuse. But if you give that interface to a boomer, they do it because they do what they're told. They'll use it because they do what they're told. You give it to an Xer, we'll say, well, that's stupid, but then we'll use it because we don't know any better. But if you give this to a millennial, they'll say, well, that's stupid, and they'll find a workaround. But if you give a Gen Z this interface, Well, you're basically telling them that you hate them because that's not their world. Their world is this very engaged TikTok where the algorithm conforms it to a user of one. And that's really the change that's happening here, is that it's a technology that we're using smarter technology. Now, since just about everybody flew in, I'll just want to give you this visual. The next time you have to catch a 6 a.m. flight and you have to get up at 4 a.m. and you're staring at the mirror questioning your life choices, I just want you to remember that by the time you land at 10 a.m., a 12-year-old is going to wake up, spend the entire day on TikTok or Instagram, and make more money than all of us combined on this side of the room. I mean, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-olds are making a lot of money. And if that sounds crazy to you, you are probably over 40. Because this world is changing. When I say it's changing, it's vastly changing. So I'm really focused on the human aspect and how we change, especially those of us over 40. So if you have a procurement academy with these skills or any of the quote-unquote traditional best practice skills, you have my permission to throw it away. Because A, what you're being charged for it is criminal. B, nobody has learned anything ever from a learning management system. And C, these skills, AI does better than humans. So we can just stop. And this means certifications. So in the US, ISM, SIG, and over here, SIPs. Now, to be fair to SIPs, I've been in discussions with a cattle prod, like pushing them to the future. We'll see if we get there. But like getting certified in these skills, pointless, absolutely pointless. Because tomorrow's skills are going to be these softer skills and a love of data, an intellectual curiosity, the ability to speak or communicate in different modalities. As a global society, visual mediums are the most used. That's why YouTube, Instagram, TikTok are so powerful. And what can you say in one quote or in one image or one meme? This is the world that we inhabit. And by the way, I've said now, and I made jokes about people over 40. If you're over 40, we are different. And one of the things that we have is critical thinking, relationship development, and the ability to, and emotional intelligence. And our job is to bring that to the younger generations. As Alan said, business is not going away. It's going to be built on relationships. So we need to double down on relationships. And those of us that are older, we grew up building relationships, doing critical thinking, and getting trained in emotional intelligence. I would say we didn't quite crack that one, but we're at least on that path. And these skills are the 3 skills that atrophy or that we lose them the more we use AI. So that critical thinking is really important, and the relationship development. All right. So this is Sarah Fryer. She's OpenAI CFO. She was recently quoted, and basically she said, why should I buy planning software, financial planning in her case, off the shelf when she can just build it? And as a result, her team's 18% the size of comparable companies because they're building what they need. And of course, you would expect this from OpenAI's CFO. However, this is really a precursor of what's going to happen over the next few years, because what happens in Silicon Valley makes its way out. The entire reason we do all these stupid digital transformations, I'll call them digital transformations that fail, is because you had a bunch of idiot consultants coming in and saying to a old company, a 100-year-old company, and saying, you should be more like Facebook, or you should be a digital native company, blah, blah, blah. And so we spend billions, probably trillions at this point, on transforming, on digital transformations that never worked. So mark my words, this whole we're going to build everything, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's going to get overhyped. And so it's important to watch this. Now, I gave you that the CRM example. SRM has never been a profitable procure tech space. So I would challenge all of you, why not just build your own? in one of the models. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. All right. So this is my thesis, that every employee, a manager of agents. So a year from now, I may or may not be back. Hopefully I'll be back because I love it here. I want each and every one of you to have 20 agents working for you when I come back. Or if I see you throughout the next year at various places, show me your 20 agents. And I'll be cheeky and I'll go a step further. I'll write you a check for 20 agents. You have to tell me what they are. Blank check, 20 agents, I'll build them for you. But that's when you'll realize that building the agents is easy. Designing them, like what would like all of a sudden if I say to you, what 20 agents can I build for you? It's really shocking to think, I don't know. Like what would I have you build? And so this is the change that's happening. This is about design, not about technical coding. All right, so this is going to have implications on the op model. And it's a little hard to see, but think about everything in the organization that you do, whether it's your people or it's BPO'd or global business services. If I have 100 people, they plot to one of these boxes. Well, what happens when I have 100 people and every person has 20 agents? Now I have 100 people and 2,000 agents. That's what we have to change in the op model. And maybe we need 50 people and 1,000 agents, or maybe we need 10 people and 5,000 agents, or maybe we need 150 people and 20,000 agents. We don't know the answer, and anybody who tells you they know the answer is just lying to you, because there's no way to know the answer. This is the work that's going to happen. Not only is it going to happen to our teams, but as we think about things like temp labor, and we hire coders and we hire designers, well, there are now companies that are focused on doing AI or agent temp labor, and where you can hire an AI agent for some coding or whatever particular skill you need. And as I would argue that as robots, or sort of the physical form robots, start to become more mainstream, that you will see temp labor robots that you can put into a warehouse and have them work as you would with temp labor workers. And of course, the big topic this year has been AI employees, or super agents is the term nobody can decide which term it's going to be. But essentially, it's where you hire an employee that is a dedicated AI employee. And so OpenClaw, OpenAI's, I'm drawing a blank on it, but that's a jet lag. But essentially, AI employees have become really the thing. And I will tell you, I was at an executive session in San Francisco a couple weeks ago with folks, and I saw my first AI employee in action, and it blew me away. Because this employee basically ran an entire sourcing event in the office there with the people there, and like it was wild. And it was very early days, but as somebody that's seen a lot in this space, that's pretty crazy. And so since I've used these terms interchangeably, I just want to walk you through them, because this is probably the most important takeaway, is that an agent is, we train it to do a task. I need you to, I have an agent that improves my LinkedIn postings. I give it a draft and it does whatever. But an agentic cluster is, hey, I need you to help me through, it's a team of agents working together on a process like contract management. And so I might have an agent for intake, an agent for redlining, an agent for templates, an agent for communication, and a supervisor agent, blah, blah, blah. But an AI employee, I just give it an objective. Get me 10% savings now on my IT software spend. And it goes and does it. And we measure the employee's success or failure based on it goes and figures it out, and we base that performance on whether or not it meets the objective or not. This is a big change. And so I just want you to really hold on to that, because we're going to see more and more AI employees coming into the market in procurement. Again, this is not the sexy part of AI that everybody's creating wild stock valuations. This is, hey, the day-to-day work that we do in procurement. All right, if you want to set an aspirational North Star, these are the sort of 5 components. Yours might vary, but you're welcome to sort of keep this. Is you've got to design for an audience of one. Tools like SAP were designed, and Oracle, they were designed for one system, many people. But you got to shift that on its head. It's one person and highly customized to every person. Suppliers as partners. Alan said it, I'm going to say it again. We are only going to survive in business by better relationships with our suppliers. You need that cognitive infrastructure that is going to support this. The op model is changing, and perhaps procurement as a function will go away. Not the jobs, but we will move more and more into the business. And if you want success in the AI era, hard work, creativity, motivation. AI does the rest. And I speak all over the world. And you'd be surprised, well, you wouldn't be surprised. I've been surprised that, people say, oh, but we don't have this and we don't have that. And we're like, oh, we're all the way down in New Zealand, or, people ignore us in Sao Paulo, or blah, blah, blah. Guess what? We all have access to the same tools. The next Google can be developed by 2 people in a garage somewhere in Brazil or Paraguay or Australia. It doesn't matter, because just like the internet flattened communication, AI is flattening knowledge and execution. So the only differentiators, are you going to put in the work, and how creative can you be? All right, this is just a little bit for those of you over 40. If you want to learn AI, these are the 7 steps of I'll tell you why this is important in a minute. But you start with, wow, this is cool. And then the realization, I have to learn this. And then oh my God, this is awful. And then please, please, please stop the pain. And then you get to that moment of, that'd be interesting. What if I could do this? So that I have to learn this all the way through to that would be interesting. When I do master classes, that's what I'm focused on, is getting through I have to learn this, this is terrible, please stop, to, that's interesting. Because once you get to that, that would be interesting moment, then you move quickly on to, whoa, that's cool, and then you become an evangelist. And so just keep that in mind, that these are the ways that we have to learn this. And if you take nothing else away from what I've said today, find yourself a human AI buddy. Because humans, physiologically, we learn in community. You will learn more in these 2 days than you will with 1,000 Zoom calls. Or, nobody learns anything from a learning management system, so I'm not even going to go there. Find yourself an AI buddy. They don't have to be younger, or they don't have to be super wizards, but somebody that will take the journey for you, because humans learn through failure, and failure is hard to absorb by yourself. And if you're wondering where to start your journey, start with personal productivity. Don't worry about the news. Don't even worry about the agents. Don't worry about all the other things that everybody's talking about. These are the things that you can do today, and even if you can't do them at work, which is becoming less of a problem, do them at home. This is your ability to do these things at home. And get good at this, especially if you're over 40, because this is the Excel of the 1990s. This stuff. Why are we taking meeting notes? More and more people are using agents to capture the notes. Which then begs the question, do we really even need to have the meeting in the first place? Because even the partner, like Carney had partner calls, and I don't even bother attending anymore. I just I just read the recaps, which don't really change from month to month. Anyway, so you can start this now. And the more you get into using AI in your day-to-day personal productivity, again, think of it as Excel, PowerPoint, or even just Word of 20, 30 years ago, you'll start to realize that you're going to have your own personal AI architecture. This is not about saying, I use Claude. This is about, I use Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Obsidian, what else do I use? Google Drive, Gamma, and then coming along, there'll be 10 more other things that I use. And that's not because I'm some wizard. I'm actually the slowest to learn AI. It's the fact that I have to start thinking about AI as I have my own architecture, which then begs the question, when you're setting up your procurement architecture, it has to look a lot different, because a lot of this is going to be, we're going to rely on our enterprise ERP, our data lake, and the AI platform, so working bottoms up. Those three layers have nothing to do with procurement. We're going to make use of corporate assets that have been, investments that have been made there. And then we're going to have our procurement operating system, which is going to manage all of that individual functionality. And across the top is a different set of users, which now includes AI employees and agents. So when I say the world is shifting, two things can be true at once. AI is absolutely fundamentally changing procurement. And that's a good thing, because there's a lot of inefficiencies and ineffectiveness that digital transformations can't solve. But at the same time, it is really about the humans. And all of my work now is on humans and sort of the implications on the op model. How do we learn AI, and how do we change the op model? And if I were, this is not being live streamed, I don't think, but I will be changing my position with Carney over the next few months, because I'm going to step into this realm of training and coaching for people over 40, because that's where the opportunity is. Leaving aside the fact that consulting's dying, the fact is there's a lot of work to be done in getting people up to speed. So this is very much about training people. So again, motivation, put in the hard work, and creativity. That's what will get you through this next phase. Thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions, and otherwise I'll do 10 minutes of stand-up. Yeah, fire away. And there's somebody walking around with a microphone. And if there are no questions, this is going to be really awkward. Yep. Ah, there we go. Thank you, Dermot. Makes it less awkward.
Elouise, earlier you mentioned in your North Star piece that the procurement team might dissipate within the business. Do you want to explain a bit more what that might look like for, I suppose, category managers, transformation roles, etc.?
Yeah, I think we're all transformationed out. I think we can all agree that no more transformations. So every idiot consultant that comes in to sell you an AI transformation, like that, just know that that's going to fail. This is going to be bottoms up, each in winning the hearts and minds one at a time. But if you're doing category management, supplier relationship management, some of these sort of strategic, and I hate this sort of strategic versus tactical, but elements that are core to the business, commodities, we can get much better at doing those capabilities through the use of AI. And I was a big Certuo fan. I won't say that I'm not, but I certainly wouldn't have paid a lot of money for a tool that essentially became irrelevant right before they got purchased. Because if I train my model, if I can just use ChatGPT and I can teach it all I need to know about whatever category I'm doing, let's just say software or hardware or cloud, all of a sudden, I can have all of these agents doing work, creating strategies, doing search, doing evaluations at scale. And that's me as an old person that really just took an hour to configure everything. And so to train it what you know about your category, so whatever category, let's say you do chemicals, like if you have 25 years of knowledge in your head, why not just teach it, give it right to the agent? And as a case in point, all of my research, all of my writing, all of my podcasts, I have an agent that I've trained to figure out my tone and style, which doesn't mean I give up anything to it, but it helps me organize my thoughts. So as a category manager, same thing.
Hello, hi there. Since you mentioned that we are still trying to figure out like what's an optimal balance between employees and agents per se, so does the same apply for AI employees as well, or do you see that there should be a one-on-one, one employee back with a AI employee right there?
So we're still figuring out the AI employee, because how does that change the op model? And by the way, remember I sort of threw in there that HR is sort of pointless now. AI employees aren't going to report to HR. Human resources, why would my AI employee report to them? And we'll probably, in some ways, just lease the employees from OpenAI or Anthropic at some point, or perhaps specialized companies, hint, hint, that you could build your own AI employees and hire them direct. So like the traditional op model, business model changes dramatically. And yeah, so.
So do you see that like an AI employee working independently, or you should still be back with a human there?
Yep. You should be able to give that AI employee, like I said, here's a perfect use case. We're halfway through the year. We're off on our revenue targets. CFO says, I need savings now. So what are the first thing we do? You're either going to hire a bunch of consultants, or you're going to get the team together and do a crash effort in whatever. And so what's the team do? We read all the contracts, see where we have opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Well, and you can just play that out all the way down the line. What if I had an AI employee, I said, I need 10% savings now, and then that employee will then go through and do the same effort automatically, and then bring it to the meeting, and we can evaluate, just like you'd hire consultants to go do all that assessment, come back and present to you some options. Well, that AI employee can do it in an hour. And oh, by the way, it's like, oh, we like options 1, 5, 10, and 6. Well, go run sourcing events, see what you can do. And it does it. I don't have to teach it. It knows how to do that. That's the big breakthrough.
Thank you.
Oh, got a question over here. I'm excited. Makes it less awkward.
Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. You called that 3 successes in the AI era: hard work, creativity, motivation. I really understand creativity and motivation. Hard work, I need your help to crack it for me, because I feel like Gen Zs are more about work smart, not hard. And I need a little bit more on that concept, because the Gen Zs are about work-life balance, about afternoon yogas and lattes in the morning. So where's the work hard part?
Well, I'm going to try to separate out the Gen Z, because that's just going to be like an old person. I'm going to sound like an old person saying, "Oh, those young people." But the reality is work is hard, and the fact that, like, if we say that, like, creators, just take content creators. Let's just look at that. It's hard work. I mean, that's why we have when people don't put in the work. That's why we get AI slop. So that's what LinkedIn is full of. That's what YouTube, like 20% of YouTube now is AI slop, which is just people saying to ChatGPT, write me a script for, I don't know, a 10-minute podcast on this, record it, da-da-da-da-da, and I click a button, and now I have something out on YouTube. That's work smarter, not harder. With me? But that piece of content is trash. Like, nobody wants to listen to that. If I do that same thing, I'm going to write the script, and I'm going to think about, oh man, I was in Ireland and I had an amazing time and I feel these things and I want to create that same feeling for you when you watch the video. And oh, like my AI employee session, I took video of Market Street in San Francisco because it was such a beautiful sunny day, and I wanted to convey that when I create the content, which I will in a few weeks. Well, that content's going to be way more interesting because I curated it and I took the time to say, I want the streetcar of that 2 minutes of footage. I want that footage of the streetcar going by. I want the shot of the building I was in and then the table we were around because I want to evoke San Francisco. Well, that's hard work. It takes a lot of time. And then the script is, I can't just say, create some script. Like the key takeaway is I had 20 executives in that room and they're doing a sourcing event with an AI employee. That's the takeaway. AI is not going to create that because I know that takeaway will create anxiety for people. That's my goal. And AI can't do that. So what I could have done that same video in an hour or 3 days. So that's the hard work. And the difference is my video that I create is going to be way more impactful because I put in the hard work. And again, along the way, I'll use AI. But it's the difference between just letting AI do everything. Does that help? Yeah. Yes, right next to you. Perfect.
Thank you. I have a question about processes. When you talk about your black box, how much relevance do you still give something like business process mapping, and how do you see it evolving potentially in the future? Because I think we still need it, but in some other form and shape.
I love this question. There is no process in an AI world. There are outcomes. So my source to pay black box, requisitioner puts in a requisition, it goes through the black box, the laptop or the barrel of oil or the whatever chemical comes out on the other end. I don't care what that process is. I want to govern it, I want to regulate it, but I don't care. I don't have to pre-map every process. So a little bit back to Dermot's question, like there's a start point, an end point, and constraints, and the user in the system can figure it out. I don't need to be a part of it. And the reason we have all these business process mappings is because we didn't, in a analog world that adopted digital technology, the technology was not smart enough. So we had to predefine all of our processes so some systems integrator could go hard code them into a system. Every Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Workday system is exactly that. Onboarding a new employee, there is no process. These are the outcomes. I need them to be trained with this. I need them to have a laptop. I need them, give it the outcome, let the machine figure it out. No process in it. And I'm being provocative, but yeah.
A follow-on from that question in relation to tech debt and AI readiness. How would you advise an organization to become AI ready when they have multiple siloed systems, legacy processes? If you have an AI employee and you ask it to do something and it says, I don't have that data point, I don't have access to that system, this is inaccurate data. How can you advise a company on getting to that AI readiness stage to actually benefit from it, employees?
So first off, the first step is personal productivity. Just like I said, every one of you should be using, if I asked you, maybe, if I bump into you throughout the rest of the day, you can tell me all the ways you're using AI. There's no wrong answer other than I'm not using it because I don't believe. But essentially then, if you're gonna then move into, hey, I need connections to the ERP system or this system or that system, you have access to those now, you as yourself. So if I give you an AI employee, why would you not just give it your credentials and it can go and pull the information out? This is why SAP strategy is an absolute failure and not gonna work. So, because whatever job you have today, you know how to do your job and you have the data to do your job. So AI can come in and augment that or do that job and help under your supervision expand out. The problem is I can't just come in with all these connected systems and put AI on top of that. So that's why I encourage you to think about it as a personal level and then the team level. All those other data issues will work themselves out. But each of you, everybody in this room has the data you need to do your jobs.
I'm just, part two of that maybe is controlling the cost side of AI. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at Snowflake up there, and I saw their stock price went up about 80% last week alone because they're finding AI agents are calling on data and calling on prompts a lot more.
Yep.
Like, how are companies going to do that cost evaluation between humans versus agents doing the work?
Yeah, so the thing about AI costs is it's out of whack with the market. And a couple of reasons, the big driver in that is data centers. And the big constraint on data centers is electricity. So you kind of got to work backwards from we're doing a live should cost on data centers here. So that was a procurement joke, come on. Anyway, I'm just teasing. So, so essentially that's what's driving. So there's this that's big capital investment, big electricity, big resources, and everywhere you're getting pushback from communities and so forth. But that assumes that AI is in a data center in the cloud. As AI is now moving, as it is with DeepSeek and now Gemini, Gemma 4, is they're moving into your devices. And so as it moves into the devices, like every iPhone or every mobile phone and laptop in here is sitting idle pretty much for today doing nothing. And so the ability for AI to run locally is going to change that dynamic, which is going to bring the cost way down. And it's actually an existential threat for OpenAI and Anthropic because they're not in this space. But DeepSeek and Google's making a defensive play here. That's going to push the cost down. So then we won't be in this token race. So right now we're paying an absolute premium, but that is going to come down. And so then the question becomes, what's the most efficient way to do this job? The hill I will die on is that using humans to review contracts, whether it's authoring them, reviewing them, doing intelligence in contracts, way better done by an agent. Way, 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 way better done by an agent. In fact, I would even argue sourcing, at least elements of it, much better done by an agent because having responded to a whole lot of RFPs in my time, anyway, the responses are less than stellar because it's just a huge burden on the supplier. So I saw a question back there.
Hello, thank you, Louise. It was really inspiring and maybe kind of other angle, not so technical, not so AI. I would like to revert to humans.
Yeah.
I'm also Gen Z, so Gen X, sorry. I would love to be Gen Z, but I am not. So I've got a lot of inspiration from you, and I really love that you are transforming now your role in from consultant to more coach and support for people. Tell me, what do you think would be the real crisis people our age, older, and maybe even millennials will be going through when AI will overtake, not our jobs, but lots of the tasks we are doing. So going through the change management process, we knew from digital transformation was already very difficult.
Yeah.
And people were struggling with change just because they didn't like the change. What do you think now people will be struggling? What would be the first top 3 crises you see already people will face with the new era?
So that if you're over 40, like ageism is real. Let's have a little real talk here. Like ageism is real. And so you can't afford to say, unless you're 65, 64, maybe somewhere in there, and you can just write it out. Like you can't pretend that this doesn't exist. And this is true for millennials too, because if you're working at a company that is all SAP all the time, your career skills are atrophying. You are becoming less marketable in the market. And so, because what happens if, let's just say you're 40 or 50 and you get laid off, you have to face ageism and the fact that you are super certified, A+ gold, 3-tier XY SAP certified, which means nothing in the market today. Or you're SIPS certified, and like none of that matters if you're trying to find a job over 40 in the market. And this, again, I'd bump that down even for some millennials. You can't be letting your career skills wither away because IT says we're an SAP shop. So that's the first crisis. The second crisis is the fact that the way we think about business, the way businesses run, and that gets to everything from where our suppliers are and the decisions we make, it changes, like fundamentally. And again, it's not a good thing or a bad thing, and it's not an AI takes over, but if a million years ago, if you were to get your MBA when I was in college, you would be learning about P&G, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, whoever else that were Caterpillar. And then if you were in the 2000s, you would have learned about Amazon maybe, and I forgot, I lost. Anyway, so some of the more modern enterprises, and if you go to business school today, you're learning about Facebook and perhaps OpenAI, but all of those like what made those companies successful doesn't really translate into today's world. And then the other thing is just the way we do work. There's a lot of, risk management really isn't risk management. Anybody that says they do risk management is really doing risk theater, because we're pretending to make decisions based on risk. The way we do risk can fundamentally change for the better, because we can deploy a bunch of agents to do a bunch of really great, sophisticated work. That's the type of change that's happening. But if you go around telling me, well, we use whatever tool and whatever that's a survey tool, or even worse, ESG, we're gold star compliant in whatever, so what? None of that matters, because you're wasting water, and you're poisoning, or whatever. So these are the things we can't just take the assumption because some certifying body gave us a gold star. The business is changing. So we have to recognize that those things we learned, not relevant anymore. And I'll just say one little tidbit. What happens when I have an agent doing negotiations and the supplier has an agent doing negotiations? At the end of the day, we're going to get to some middle point, and then we have to bridge the gap. And so I want you to start thinking about that use case is, well, that's actually a pretty good use case for those of us over 40, because we understand that. And it's just, you don't want to go into that negotiation without that agent helping you. Does that help?
Yeah, and what about so many years of learning about how to build a rapport during the negotiations with your counterparty,
Yeah.
And yeah. But absolutely, yes, I understand. Thank you for your answer.
And all of that work you've done to build reputations, I coach a lot of youngins, and I say, your reputation is everything, and don't let whatever company you're working for let you screw the supplier. Sorry, I can't think of a better word. Because your reputation is what's going to matter going forward. And I would add maybe your personal branding as well. So it's sort of parts of the same thing. That's what you can control, and that's what's going to matter. And if you have 40 years of experience or whatever, X amount of years, that's the way you harness that. It's not useless. It's just different, and different ways to package it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience.